Welcome to the Corporate Learning Network videocast. I'm Jeff Cattell. Today I have with me Kevin Nieman, Chief Learning Officer at First Horizon National Corporation. Kevin will be speaking at this year's Corporate Learning Week, November 12th through the 15th at Disney's Yacht Club Resort in Orlando, Florida. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jeff.
So I know you're going to be part of the Chief Learning Officer panel when you're down in Orlando, and I understand that one of the things that the panel will be focusing on is the role of learning and development when you're developing, branding, growing a company's workplace and employee culture. So can you talk about the culture-related initiatives that L&D has sort of spearheaded at First Horizon?
Sure, I'll be glad to. We've actually been working on our culture. If you really go back, I was with the company in the early 90s when we actually began to think in terms of culture drives performance. And so we began to think about culture way back then. And they've continued to work on it through all these years, but most particularly since I've been back at the organization in the last 6 years, we began to look at how do we understand how culture is actually affecting the performance today. And so we actually used a company called the Hay Group, where they have 56 attributes that measure culture. And we began to sit down and we had some of our most influential as well as our top leaders examine the cultural attributes, those 56 items, to determine where were our strengths and where were our weaknesses and how would that impact our business. If you look at what we want to do as an organization, we want to be there for our customers. And we were pretty good at that. But when it came to actually managing change, we had some growth opportunities. And so we've spent a lot of time really looking at that, and we've measured both from the standpoint of 2008 is when we actually did the measurement. We measured again in 2010, and we had made progress in the very areas that we wanted to make progress. And that was part of a specific focused effort to do that. And then going a little bit further, we actually began to say, okay, we're moving fast, but how do we get even better? And so we've continued to look at, to give you an example, where are those situations where you have silos within an organization, where one group is paying attention to itself at the expense of the other parts of the organization. Other things might be where if you have a situation where you say we want truth to come out, so you want people to be candid with their leaders, where were those situations where the climate, meaning in that case how it feels to be part of that work unit, where the climate encouraged that kind of behavior, and where were those situations where while we said the right things, in actuality, the climate and or the culture actually prevented us from being candid, actually inhibited candor. And so as you begin to look at that, you begin to think in terms of what are the specific interventions that we could actually implement that would change that for the better so that the truth surfaced, but at the same time, people actually felt good about the fact that people, their leaders wanted the truth.
That's very cool. I think it's really interesting how you're, from the beginning, it sounds like bringing in these measurement aspects because culture really, in many ways, can be viewed as something that's a soft skill or something that's difficult to measure. So that's really interesting how you can add these devices to sort of year in, year out, see where the improvements are. A big question also connected to measurement for us that we keep seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing it in your own workplace, is looking at measurement of a specific department's return on investment. And because learning and development sort of, straddles the line in terms of soft skills, hard skills, things that are very easy to measure, things that are not necessarily so easy to track and measure, what steps have you guys taken at First Horizon to show executives the ROI on your various training and learning programs?
Well, I would answer that a couple of ways. First, we have done specific programs. One of the easiest ones to do is when you look at sales. Did the intervention that we put in place actually result in more sales? Did it increase the revenue per employee in that situation? And we've done some of that. What we've actually spent more time focused on is what are the actual things that leaders see as their strategy. And we partnered very closely with them. So, for example, if their strategy was to make sure that we were asking the right questions of our customers, and those questions led to a better customer relationship, and ultimately, because that relationship is good, because we are actually driving our focus on our products to what the customer needs, then we know that we're in line with where we want to go as an organization. So what we've tried to do is make sure that we are at the table with our executive leaders, with our line of business leaders, so that we know exactly what they're trying to drive, and all the learning efforts that we have are focused on what they want. And I don't mean that we don't push back, because one of the other things is if we think that they're headed in the wrong direction, then we feel, and our culture allows us to say, you know what, we've got to make sure that we raise issues with that executive so that we don't allow them to not ask the question. They ultimately have to make that decision. But we help them ask the right questions that ultimately drive business performance. So while we do some ROI measurement, we really, really focus on being aligned with the strategy of business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, of being upfront with things and not just measuring on the back end, like I think a lot of companies really are doing.
And that's a great point, because if you don't know where it is you want to go, then any road will get you there, right?
Right.
So if we sit down with the executives or the line of business leader, and we ask them on the front end of any learning initiative, whether it's cultural or it's simply skill-based, if we can get them to define for us exactly where they want to go, then the bottom line is we can also ask them, then what would tell you that we've been successful? And so that's the collaboration that takes place on the front end, which means that we can then measure it on the back.
Very cool. Very cool. Another thing I wanted to ask you about is the types of learning technology that you guys use. Have you bought into any, learning management systems, or do you use things like mobile technology or e-learning?
Absolutely. We actually have a learning management system, which also is a learning content management system, which is also integrated with our performance management system and our succession planning system. So we sort of bought a package that's integrated all the way. And the theory behind that was that if we understand from a strategic standpoint where we're trying to go, again, our learning is designed to find what are the gaps in skill, and then the learning management and learning content system allows to align to competencies that are aligned to the skills that are needed to execute that strategy. We felt like we would have a much better chance of being successful in actually driving business results. So we have a learning management system, we have a learning content management system, we have, with that same system, we have performance and succession management. Then, if you look at it from the standpoint of e-learning in general, we have been developing our own e-learning. We have very strong technical training, both management as well as our designers. So we have a small in-house design shop on a relative scale. We've measured how do we compare from a cost per employee standpoint against what we would pay if we went outside and contracted for that same. And we've been able to keep our costs much lower, but the quality of what we do, we get great feedback on, and that's as compared to some of the external programs. Then when you think about it from the standpoint of what else are we doing, we are in the process of building, I would say, social networking. That is what I would say, it is a constantly changing environment and tools. We have some internal tools, but we're constantly looking to upgrade those tools. And as far as mobile learning, what I would say is we are simply, at this point, sort of sitting, trying to decide what really works for us.
Another thing that, sort of going off the technology bend and seeing sort of what's on the horizon out there, I'm wondering, what are the emerging trends in learning and development that you are specifically focused and honed into?
Well, I think we would continue on the line of the idea that social learning, particularly where that social learning allows people to be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
I read a case study not too long ago about how organizations make decisions based on limited information with regards to what is the support in the organization for a particular type of effort. Well, it's one thing to think, it's another thing to do surveys, and then it's another one still when you create a situation where people can be candid, knowing that whatever they say is going to be visible from the chairman all the way to the frontline employee. Every person's name is attached to what they say. So if they feel that strongly about it, they can be transparent, but they also know what the limits are, that they're putting it out there and they're being candid. Well, I've seen that in other organizations, and the business results that were achieved from it is that People, the executive leadership all the way down to frontline employee knew exactly how people felt about a particular initiative or idea, and they were able then to make adjustments because they knew exactly what the truth was. We're looking at that to say, how do we incorporate that into our organization? We have some of it, but how do we take that further so that without a formal program, you can actually sort of understand what people are thinking, which allows you to drive the business results again.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a few similar situations in the business world that are doing that. So that definitely seems like a frontier that people are very much exploring now. I know I kept you on the line for a while. What I want to ask you before you go is, what are you most excited about at this year's conference?
Well, I think any time that you can get together with people in similar roles who have the ability, to me, to influence the bottom line business results through learning, that's a pretty dadgum exciting thing to be a part of. And so being able to both hear those who are speaking, but also to be able to network with people who play a similar role to what you play, and in fact, probably many people who have had a lot more experience than I have. I've been at this for quite a while, but having the opportunity to exchange ideas with those people, I mean, that's intriguing.
Great, great. Well, thanks, Kevin. That was Kevin Nieman, Chief Learning Officer at First Horizon National Corporation. For more information on Kevin or any of the other speakers at this year's Corporate Learning Week, you can view an agenda by clicking the Download Now button below. Thanks for watching.